All right, so this is the first video for Unit 1. What this is basically a summary of the content that's already there. Plus, if you are an auditory learner, you can listen to all the content. So I'm going to be speaking most of the content or all of the content, but there's not going to be all the content on the actual slides. So let's do this. All right, so in this activity, you're going to learn about different reasons why people wear clothing. Experts in the field have developed a number of theories, and through your reading in this activity and viewing of the Why of Clothing fashion show, you will become familiar with a few of the most prevalent theories. Understanding these theories, as well as the fashion system, will help you think about your clothing choices from a consumer perspective and provide the first step towards your knowledge of the world of fashion and building your fashion vocabulary. So this unit and Unit 2 serves as a primer because there is no fashion prerequisite for this course. So this is kind of giving you a head start of the fashion knowledge that you might know if you took the HNC 3C course. So these are the expectations. This will make more sense when you see your evidence record. These expectations are already on the expectation page as well. So we're going to start right off the bat, why people wear clothing. So when you decide your outfit based on how you're feeling or the weather conditions or because you use clothing as a form of self-expression, you might also communicate your personality or individuality. Perhaps you want to express your cultural heritage, or perhaps you need to wear a uniform to school or for a sports team to which you belong. Perhaps your choice is governed by a special event, such as a family, cultural, or religious celebration. Regardless of the reason for your choice, it's important to realize that there are many interrelated factors which govern and influence your clothing choices. Some of these reasons are noted in the Venn diagram. So here are the three kind of spheres of why people wear clothing, and we're going to go through each one together. So number one is physical needs. So physical needs govern the use of clothing for protection. So here in Ontario, you would wear heavier clothing during the winter to protect your body from the cold, especially if you're here in Ottawa. During the summer months, you might wear a wide-brimmed hat or sunglasses or even cover-up makeup made of UV protection. So you really want to shield your body from the sun in the summer. You may also participate in sports or other recreational activities that require you to wear special garments, padding, footwear, or headgear. As well, some individuals work in occupations that require them to wear garments that protect them from environmental factors. So maybe you've seen medical professionals wearing face masks, caps, gowns, and sterile gloves to reduce contamination and maintain a sterile environment. So other individuals have chosen occupations which require them to wear clothing that protects them from occupational hazards. So think of the protective clothing worn by firefighters and special apparel worn by those in law enforcement and the military. Within the work environment, certain occupations have specific dress codes. So this is a set of written or unwritten rules saying what should or should not be worn. Maybe if you have a part-time job, you are familiar with the dress code at your place of employment. These expectations must be followed when health, safety, sanitation, and contamination issues are at the forefront of employee safety. So the next sphere is social needs. So you can just pause me and I'm just going to click on this video here. Okay, so hopefully you paused me and watched the Mean Girl videos here on the right. If not, just do that now. That clip really gives us a good idea of social needs and why we wear certain clothes to fit social needs. So generally we wear clothes to affiliate to a peer group. So if you spend any time in your high school looking at people, you might notice that many social groups have a look. So there might be like a preppy group or a jock group or a cool Asians group if you're referring to Mean Girls. So are there any written or unwritten rules within your peer group? I imagine there's not anything as stupid as, oh, I'm not allowed to wear gold hoop earrings because Regina George is the only one that's allowed to wear white gold hoop earrings. But you might have certain rules that are within your peer group. Also, you might have brands, labels, accessories, or choices that are approved or disapproved by your peer group. Another big factor in societal needs is modesty or immodesty. So, depending on your peer group or your family, do you cover your body to what society thinks is decent, or do you revolt against that, or do you do that sometimes and revolt at other times? So, this definitely depends on gender. It's more appropriate for women to be uncovered than men. Also, age, culture, occasion, and historical period. Lastly, religion, values, and beliefs. A lot of these have social ceremonies that require special items of clothing to be worn. Clothing is a language which allows you to say different things about yourself at different times. So, when we're talking about religion, value, and beliefs, a wedding is a rite of passage that might include a religious ceremony. One of the garments that you might wear is a white veil. It's worn by the bride, and it's supposed to symbolize purity and protection. So, next up is psychological needs. Adornment is one of those things that ties into psychological needs. Adornment is the most widely accepted reason used why people wear clothing, as humans have a need to make the body beautiful. Adornment includes any item of clothing or accessory or adornment practice, such as putting on makeup, dyeing your hair, extensions, tattooing, scarification, ear piercing, plastic surgery, anything of that sort that is desired beyond a person's physical needs. So, it's not something that you physically need to survive, but you choose to partake in it. Adornment practices are culturally prescribed and reflect a culture's standard of beauty. So, depending on where you go in the world, different adornment practices might be considered beautiful. So, most recently, there's been a focus on a male standard of beauty to which men are prescribing. So one of the things that men are doing now that they didn't in the past is having their chest or their legs waxed. This adornment practice was unthinkable even 10 years ago unless somebody was a bodybuilder. So research into males' perception of their body began maybe 30 years ago in the 80s and focused on body image of long-distance runners. But today, bodybuilding and a buff physique has become increasingly important to all men. A humanities professor at the University of Kentucky named Susan Bordeaux, and she's also the author of The Male Body, states that for men, there's something new in all of this. Men can experience the pleasure of self-display, a pleasure that women have always known. So the medical profession notes that not only is it becoming more acceptable for men to participate in cosmetic surgery, men are developing maladies that were traditionally allocated to women's health issues. These maladies include eating disorders, steroid abuse, and exercise addiction. So if you go to your local newsstand and look at the covers, there's going to be headlines like "Get abs like this in 10 days." This use of a manipulated media image and a societal standard of beauty, although ever present, is a cruel cultural trick and an unattainable goal for most. So one of the other things that ties into psychological needs is self-identification. Clothing can be used to identify people as members of a group. So going back to the part-time job, do you have a part-time job that requires you to wear a uniform? Dress codes reflect cultural standards and expectations, and uniforms are a symbol of occupation and a status within the organization. So for example, in fine dining kitchens, sometimes a chef's hat would represent whether the person is an executive or a sous chef. So in other words, the hat reflects their position in the kitchen. The business suit was designed during the early 18th century to visually communicate and symbolize a man who did not work as a farmer or in the trades. The terms white collar and blue collar get thrown around a lot, and they're derived from this dress code. The term white collar symbolizes an individual who works in the business community, while the latter symbolizes an individual who worked in the trades. What's interesting to note is that the stigma attached to the clothing symbolism has waned, as many tradespeople have an annual income of over 6 figures. So, every culture has developed its own dress code, and that helps divide group membership and distinguish between appropriate and inappropriate dress for certain occasions. So for example, in some cultures the color of mourning is black, while in other the color of mourning is white. Queen Victoria set the standard for a white wedding when she married Prince Albert on February 10, 1840. In other cultures, such as India or China, the color red is worn for wedding nuptials. So, going into cultural identity and heritage, do you own a specific item of clothing that represents your heritage? This item could represent a specific style or footwear, such as kilt, sari, kimono, turban, poncho, or a pair of clogs. These might be made from a specific type of fabric or incorporate the use of color or embellishment that is unique to your specific culture. So throughout history, items of clothing have been produced that are unique to the culture they represent. And sometimes the shapes and the styles of the garment are the same and sometimes they're different. Sometimes the embellishment and ornamentation used to decorate the garments are different. So for example, the richly embroidered garments made from silk with mandarin collars represent Chinese heritage, whereas batik fabrics represent both Indonesian and African heritages. These garments are often referred to as national costumes, but don't get that confused with like a costume in which you dress up. So group membership can also be denoted through the wearing of status symbols. A status refers to the position or rank of an individual within a group. So sometimes we see royals wearing crowns, sometimes we see people of the military wearing insignias or medals. So research notes that there's a strong relationship between status seeking and clothing behavior. So wearing clothing with logos or brand names is an attempt to communicate status. So think of this as Lululemon. If you're wearing a plain pair of track pants from like Giant Tiger, or a pair of Lululemon yoga pants, there is an idea of status there that the yoga pants from Lululemon are much more expensive. So another more extreme example of this would be Hermes. Hermes is considered the last bespoke couture house. And this means that a Hermes tie or scarf or bag is probably built to a customer's specific requirements, but they're going to pay for it. So, when we talk about wedding bands, I'm just going to go back for a second. A wedding band is a symbol that represents something else, and in our culture, a lot of married people do wear wedding bands, and this is typically a gold ring. And this stands for something more than just a ring. It represents a marriage or a union between two people. And the reason why it's a circle is because a circle is never broken. It's circular. It continues forever. So all cultures use appearance and clothing as symbols because they provide the most immediate and obvious visual cues. So when you see someone with a wedding ring, you know that they are largely of a particular age, wealth, social status, religion, anything like that. So I want you to pause me and click on the link here and just go through this learning object repository and then come back to me. All right, so we're almost done. The fashion as a social process, that's what this whole unit is all about. Fashion represents a mean of social interaction. And you have to understand that fashion is part of a cultural system of society. So it has a lot of things tied into it. So in some nations, fashion is rejected for ideological or political reasons. So for example, in mainland China, people have rejected fashion and repressed individual expression through dress for political reasons after the communist takeover in 1949. But more recently, fashion has had a comeback because it's helped China's textile industry. So this has led to the promotion of fashion to the people in China. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about is Hamilton. So I need you to click on this link and download the Fashion Continuum. This is going to talk about what factors influence fashion, so individuals, social groups, the industry, and larger trends. These are 4 things that Hamilton said that has influenced fashion. So the fashion industry is very interested in knowing about the clothes you wear as well as your purchasing behavior, and online shopping and social media has given them an inside look into your personal life and your spending habits and what you like and dislike and who you like and dislike. So once you look at the fashion continuum, we are going to use these ideas for our first discussion. So head over to the assignment page. Feel free to refer back to the content at any time. All of what I've said is in there. And if you have any questions, give me an email or a page.